System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Thursday, July 2nd. I'm Amin TMK alongside Amoja, Lil Tanky Summer. Amoja, hello. Happy Thursday, July 2nd. July 4th coming up soon, 250th anniversary. I know, very excited, very hyped.
Man, I don't know if you noticed, man. This is a very important time in America. It's what happens like when George Washington met Jeebus and they rose on the third day and America was born, man. And we
They
celebrated.
They marched with King.
They did.
Yeah, and that ended racism. And that's
It
what we're
was
celebrating.
amazing, man. And it's for these reasons, really, when I think about like that 250th anniversary of America and George Washington and Jeebus and walking with the king to get rid of racism, that I think it's okay, actually, that George Washington was a human trafficker who sold and trafficked in human beings, had their teeth extracted to, you know what I'm
Genocided some
saying?
indigenous people, I think, as well.
Yeah, the genocide of the Iroquois nation. Hey, look, man, you got to crack a few eggs to make America.
It's nuanced, dude.
That's what it is.
Look, I can exactly, and I still respect them.
I understand exactly where Obama was coming from. I really do.
Yeah, that was the Obama speech. Maybe we'll talk about it at a later time. If you guys aren't in the know, go to at Inner City Left if you're on Instagram, and you can read all about it. Read all about it. Anyway, yeah, how are you doing though? Are you good?
Man, no, it's lovely. I mean, it's this fucking heat. But look, I'm an American. We have air conditioning, so
not like Europe. We're gonna talk about that.
Not like Europe.
Here's the best thing about the heat wave. This is the coldest summer you're ever going to experience. Or how about this? The cold, yeah. This is from now going forward, every summer is going to be hotter. So experience this most cold.
Good.
This is a freezing summer compared to what it's going to be like in 20 years. But that's an environmental issue, and we'll talk about that later. Or you can follow us on Inner City Left on Instagram.
There it is.
More. Let's get into what we want to talk about today. I think it's important. I think it's necessary. Let's go to Kiev. I mean, not me and you, but
I would rather not.
Yeah, I'm not going there. I'm just saying let's go to this next slide. Kiev has seen better days. They don't have any refineries left to be destroyed. Even small military factories are falling prey to massive Russian attacks. As you can see here for our YouTube viewers. Explosion. Of smoke. Not fireworks. Friends, family, genders and non-gender binary folks of all kinds. That was not fireworks. Those were explosions. How about this? Russian forces hit Ukraine's fuel infrastructure across the country. Russian forces have launched 50 strikes on Ukrainian gas stations, fuel tanks, and storage facilities over the past 3 days. The attacks have caused traffic jams in several regions, with queues stretching for dozens of kilometers. AFU logistics have been seriously disrupted. I guess we can play this. These are the specific gas stations again for our YouTube watchers. It always does this when I need it to work. But yeah, here we go. This just been the last few days, man. Like this music? Yeah. Hope we don't get copyrighted.
There it is. Some Russian composer is gonna be like, hey, I wrote that shit.
All right, I'll spare y'all the whole video, but yeah, it don't look good. It don't look good.
For those of
Lots
y'all
of
that's listening on the podcast, you know what I'm saying? It's a rousing rendition of Tchaikovsky's Third. You know what I'm saying? I have to laugh because it's just
it's so
silly. This
Russian.
is it really is. All of this stuff is stuff that's available in something that is called the open source intelligence uh, parts of the internet. And if you know where to look, this stuff is just right there. This is like not classified things. These are things that this is how sophisticated that we are now in the era of contemporary war, right? You have these drone operators out there literally putting out the videos of what was happening. Okay, so why then? Why is Russia attacking these gas stations? One would think that a lot of these FPV drones that's being used in the Ukrainian conflict and the Russian conflict would be like lithium batteries, since most of the components come from China. But apparently, most of these things are still just combustion engine, little bitty, gas powered vehicles. And so, what have they been doing? They've been attacking. Ukraine has 6,000 gas stations. Over 200 of those have been blown up, right? So, those clips, they showed you a lot of things. But one of those things, the last one that they showed you was the gas stations being blown up. And so what they do is it further taxes the Ukrainian logistics, right? Wars are won through logistics. That's just the truth, right? If you think about, how do you get soldiers to to the front lines? You put them on something that uses gas, or something that uses diesel, right? So you start off with these vehicles, and it's taking them petroleum to even get to the theater, right? But then once you get in the theater, there is no petroleum left. So you got the gas that came with that drone. You got the gas that came with that APV, with that tank, with whatever you had, and it makes it harder and harder to continue to sustain operations. What's the second thing that does? It makes it harder for these drones to have a flight path to Russia, right? Because it's taking you now hundreds of kilometers just to get from where you fueled even to where you can begin to launch. Because most of these attacks have been the gas stations that are very close to the Russian border or to where the front line is, which just continues to compound and confound the logistical support of the Ukrainian armies. This goes back to what we're talking about, what's real on the battlefield, right? Not like what's flashy. Oh, they hit a refinery with a drone. Those things are inconvenient and they do cost a lot of money, but it's not stopping other than in places like where is it, the little tip that the Ukrainians want to they want to invade that area at the bottom, the area of Ukraine that voted to secede.
Crimea.
Crimea, right? Other than Crimea, there really hasn't been like gasoline shortages in Russia at all because Russia is such a huge petroleum exporter, you know. But meanwhile, what do you see happening in Kiev proper? In Kiev proper, you're seeing missiles absolutely lay waste to the city. Every now and again, the Ukrainians are able to get a drone or two into Moscow. Mostly those attacks are thwarted, but every now and again, they'll get a bit of a drone swarm in. You don't just have a drone swarm happening in Kiev right now, the capital city. Dima, the person that does the military summary um, reports, again, great open source information. He talked about this is not the largest attack that's happened in the special military operation in Ukraine, but it's absolutely the largest attack that's happened specifically on Kiev since the beginning of special military operation. So you're talking about hundreds of drones. You have the Zircon hypersonic missile systems that are coming in. You have the Iskander M hypersonic missile systems that are coming in, and then the what they call the Ha 101s, the Caliber systems, right? Those are like cruise missiles. They're slower, but they still, it's like an American Tomahawk, right? They're powerful things. These are not things you want hitting a city, right? This is what's happening in the capital city where Kiev is, of Ukraine. It should tell you what is happening as to the state of the impact of the war. the Ukrainians are losing, and they're losing badly. But there's still no sign that any of this is going to end, right? Because we still have the Ukrainians um, appealing to the Europeans, and the Europeans are putting themselves in a war posture to be ready to continue the war on their own terms. Just kind of in many ways using Ukraine to as a shield, as a human shield, while the rest of the European armies get ready. And the hope is that they'll be ready to fight Russia by like 2030. And what they need is Ukraine just to last a little bit longer. But when you're seeing videos like this, you start to wonder how. The last thing I'll say about it, and I think this is very important, there's been article after article after article, written about Ukraine's Nazi problem, epidemic. It's systemic to the way that their military works. Now, I say this because this is important. There are lots of Ukrainians that, through whatever means, were able to flee the country because they didn't want to be associated with this war. And they applied for things like asylum, all throughout Europe. Those men are being sent back to Ukraine. Like, think about that. Like, these are men that escaped that army, escaped that whole Zelensky system, and Europe is now sending them back to be used by Zelensky, to be put as human meat, okay, in these armies that are literally led by Ukrainian Nazis, And again, if you think this is just inner city left being salacious, I encourage you to look at the current tiff that is happening between Poland and Ukraine, because Poland is one of the countries that suffered the most under the Nazi regime. And as the Ukrainians continue to exhume and lay these dead Ukrainian Nazis in state, people like Stefan Bandera, like, there are countries in Europe that remember, that have populations that are old enough that are not okay with this, and this continues to manifest.
Yeah, well, you mentioned a lot of good stuff there. And one of the things that you mentioned was the military spending that's happening right now. We already know the United States, I think it was funded another 10 billion going to Ukraine. Again, Donald Biden said it was going to end first day, 24 hours, he was going to end that war. And as you can see, it's just continuing to escalate. EU just releases 4.4 billion for drones under a 102 billion-dollar Ukraine support loan. That's via the EU. You also looking, as I said, at the United States continuing to fund this war to increase their chances of possibly destabilizing Russia one day. Doesn't look like it's going to be happening now. Ask it on how their destabilization went. French Parliament backs $500 billion military spending plan, to your point about Russia. I'm sorry, about Europe getting ready to take over when there is no more Ukraine. How about Keir Starmer? He just resigned, but he is putting in a bill now that's going to increase the military spending by 18% every single year. So all of this is happening. Oh, how about this? I can't remember which country it was. I want to say Finland that said that they're going to be
Housing United States nuclear
yes, is that
weapons.
Finland?
Yes.
Aha,
Yes.
yeah.
There
Okay.
was a nuclear prohibition that did not allow the country to host nuclear weapons, to create nuclear weapons, any of that. They were meant to be a buffer state. And now, with their advent to see, and these are the ways where the world gets less safe. And the people that do it are never anywhere to be seen. Now, never mind it. Ukraine is under huge attack right now. Kiev is under huge attack. Zelensky's not even in the country. He's out on his begging tour trying to get money.
Very Ted Cruz of him to do such a thing. Do you remember when Ted Cruz, I think it was Texas that was experiencing like one of their worst weather events? I think it was like freezing or something like that. And he got out and he went to the Caribbean somewhere. That's just who these politicians are, man. They slide out when things get terrible. And Zelensky is just infamous for doing things like this. And, I think his people see it. And there's been tons of protests and things like that in Kiev, things you won't see. There's been calls for elections. We saw this. Zelensky has now gone through 4 UK prime ministers. He's outlasted them. Still no elections. No elections on the forefront, even though they continue to say that they're hinting at them. But I just want to just mention a little bit about this too with Europe. And I don't know. I kind of want to speak candidly a little bit about it because it's like, what are you doing? You got no chance against Russia. And we're seeing Russia spank Ukraine right now, but they're still not using those Orishniks. They're still not using the Budaveshniks. They're still not using the full might of what they can do. And yet you keep seeing Europe push more and more when they know they just don't have a shot.
Yeah, and the one thing that is impossible to deny is, again, as we've been talking about on Inner City Left, the Iranification of their response, because the posture is much greater now. You know, gone is the restraint of this evil Putin that they've been selling us, right, since like 2022. This guy that essentially
Now
had
they're
them
trying to
fighting
make him
with
seem
gloves on.
weak. Now they're like, oh, he's weak.
Like,
Which
gone
is
is the
it?
restraint. You know, they've had the power to do these type of attacks the entire time, and yet they haven't. You know, and it's still not right that can, like very announced.
And you're breaking up a little bit, but yeah, as soon as you come back in, they'll let you jump back in. But I think to your point, man, like Russia has done everything they can to restrain themselves, and you can tell that when you compare the data to the Israelis and people in Gaza. You can tell the difference because when you look at the amount of reporters that have been killed in Ukraine, when you look at the amount of civilians that have been killed in Ukraine, when you look at the amount of purely the amount of people that have um what's the word that I'm looking for? Purely the amount of people, the amount of people that have been able to just even escape Ukraine. Welcome back. And I was just going to your point of, when you look at the totals of civilian casualties, you look at the totals of reporters killed in Ukraine, they're infinitesimal to
Right,
the carnage you see in Gaza right now, and the
right.
carnage you see in Lebanon right now. Because when we
Yeah,
talk, and one last thing, let you go, because Israel says they're the most moral army out there. Of course, ridiculous. It's like Fair and Balanced about Fox News. But really, it's Russia that's the most moral army out there, not to mention how many people have surrendered on the Ukrainian side that now are in Russia now. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
well, I will make one caveat. I mean, the way that Russia fights people that they see as neo-Russian, you know what I'm saying? The way that they fight Ukrainians, who they see as essentially a Russian people, I don't know if I want to use that as you know what I'm saying? Because there's no guarantee they'll show any type of restraint like that when it comes time to fight the Franks. You know what I'm saying? When it comes time to fight the Poles, right?
But there's no
These
reason to
are
think that it wouldn't happen.
right, right,
I mean,
right.
I
But I'm
don't,
always
again,
be a little bit nicer to my cousin, you
well, I
know?
mean that is true, but I mean, I need to push back a little bit more because this is what the global South doesn't really engage in this type of
Right.
behavior. This type of behavior is almost exclusively put on by the West, United States, Israel,
That's fair.
places like
That's
France.
fair.
Where there is so little. I mean, let's look at Russia in the Sahel right now, and there's no the exploitation is totally different. When you look at the colonialization of Russia, I'm sorry, the colonial or imperialistic history of Russia, it's not really there, but it
Right.
is for the United States. It is for
Hmm.
Israel. It is for Europe. So just on that, of course, and to your point also, in pre 1990, this was a place also called the
The
Soviet
Soviet
Union.
Union, right?
Communism, the
Yeah.
Soviet
So,
Union. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with that as well.
and I'm not saying that they
Hey,
will
but look, Europe
become
fights everybody. They fought themselves over and
100%.
over again, and they're not that far from. They're not. Their
Yeah.
bloodlines ain't that different, man.
But to your point, right? Like, even when we're talking about all of these gas stations that they're blowing up, They're doing it in the middle of the night when there's nobody there, right? So you're not
Yeah.
hearing about, 50 people burned to death as Russians attack, right? So, like, even in their tactics, they're doing tactics that destroy property and going out of their way to minimize casualties. That's just not something that we do in the American way of
The
war,
Israelis would have double tapped it.
right?
They'd
What's
waited
what's
till rescue crews got there and bombed it again.
what's the latest defense AI? Their whole slogan is "Fight unfair." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if that's. I think it's Anduril. I think that's their motto. That's their slogan. Fight unfair, right? Like, so like that's how you end up with
That's
these
the Western motto
situations.
too.
It really is though, right? You almost have to love the honesty. Like that's us at our most truthful. But again, it shows a fundamental difference in the way that we do commit war, at least thus far in the conflict.
Yeah, and this is the last thing I kind of want to touch on, but I think it's important. No matter how much work and effort the special military operation succeeds in, there's still a lot of Ukraine left. Still a lot of Ukrainian soldiers. Ukraine, we just mentioned the amount of money that Ukraine is still getting. And of course, a lot of that money is going to go to corruption, no question. But some of it is going to see the battlefield. Some of it is going to see that intelligence. And Ukraine, we've mentioned this several times, even now, is still probably the strongest military in Europe, if you don't include Turkey or maybe you don't include Russia.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Right. If you exclude the Russians and if you exclude the Turkish, there's no denying the Ukrainian army. And we're seeing the danger of this Ukrainian army. We barely even touched on the fact that Monaco has experienced
Oh,
its first ever terrorist event because there was a Ukrainian oligarch, not a Russian oligarch, a Ukrainian oligarch that had issues with Zelensky. They are famously rivals. They've both accused each other of corruption. You know how that story goes. He's out there vacationing with his
Spider-Man
family.
pointing at each other.
Right. Again, man, Ukrainians doing so bad. We go, Americans save up for years to go vacation, at Disneyland. Ukrainian oligarchs is like, hey, let's go to Monaco. You know what I'm saying? Do a little baccarat, kick it with 007, all that
Play a little
shit.
poker, yeah.
Have a little escargot.
Driving Aston
And
Martin.
and the Ukrainian button man shows up on him, leaves a little package. Package goes boom. This dude is in critical condition. I don't know if he's made it. His family was with him. They're also injured. This again goes to show you what we're talking about the danger of the Ukrainian contact, the way that they commit combat, right? These are the people that the Democrats have continued to arm. These are the people that the Republicans are continuing to arm.
And they got lots of arms.
Right-wing people like Margaret Taylor Greene has talked about this is like a Nazi army, right? Like this is hardly some beacon of the left.
And she got out of there.
It's not impossible to see this,
She resigned. You got Thomas Massey, got primaried, got knocked out. I mean, not that these people are not good people. I'm just saying these are small ways that even people in the United States are going, guys, these guys have little swastikas on their foreheads. Okay. They're walking around.
They're not the good guys. Whatever you think about the Russians, these are not the good guys.
I mean, you literally got Nancy Pelosi up there saying Slava Ukraine, Slava Ukraine. They don't even know how close to like this Banderite sayings that they're, like you mentioned, the Banderite sayings and the slogans and the Sig Heils coming out of there. And this video is pretty much, it's like so many videos too. It's like not difficult.
You would
to
actually
find a video.
actively have to be not trying to see it at this point. Like there's so many articles been written about it. This is hardly inner city left being salacious.
Yeah, I mean, when my friend Tony Blinken, when he went to the Nazi Bennigan's and did the little open mic karaoke day that didn't quite work. I mean, it's everywhere. It's in their literal insignias when you see Zelensky out there with that cross. I mean, that is related to Nazism. And these people don't want to see it. You still see Ukrainian flags in the richest part of Washington, D.C. You don't see them in the hood. You see Let Gaza Live in the hood. But you see you see Ukrainian flags in the richest parts. It's so interesting to me how that works. But yeah, you have Ukraine. Now you have Europe, I guess, just trying to risk it all. And it's like, what do you want Russia to do? Again, I don't blame Russia for this. Maybe some of the people that you watch
Ask
will think
somebody in
there's,
Kiev if Russia ain't doing a lot. Ask him tonight.
yeah. I mean, but I just like my point, or what I want to get across is like, there's always this idea that there's two sides and there's two sides of this story. No, this is about the United States encroaching upon Russia, using Ukraine to do it, using NATO to do it. And this is something they've always wanted to do. They've talked about breaking Russia up further. That was the whole point. The Soviet Union was first, and then Russia was going to be next. It's just the continuation of that. And I don't look at Russia, and people hate, sometimes they don't like me for saying this. I look at Russia as the literal good guys. And that's why I said I don't see them doing the same things that the Western world does in terms of wars. I don't see them uh, abducting sovereign leaders like Nicolas Maduro, and I don't see them, killing children purposefully. What I see them doing is carrying out a military operation meant to free the people of the Donbass, denazify Ukraine, and begin this pushback and this understanding that war with NATO and Europe and the West is inevitable. Putin has said this several times, and I think they are acknowledging it. They're already talking about these maps like, oh, this is new Russia. This is going to be a part of our territory. And I think they've already been knowing this, but now they're getting to the point of, okay, this is going to be a long war. Ukraine is just the beginning. And unfortunately, who knows how long this thing is going to go. And again, there is no end. There is no timetable for when the war might end. It's just like 1984, man, war forever. And it's frustrating, man. Sucks.
Someone will run out of resources. And that's when the war will end. Someone will achieve their military goals. And that's when the war will end. It's not going to end at a ceasefire. It's not going to end. There won't be like some forum that happens in Switzerland and Zelensky and Putin and Trump. That's not going to happen. Someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. Just like Iran in the United States. Someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. Until then, everything else is a distraction. And we got to be smart. Got to see things accurately for what they are, not what we want them to be.
I wish the war was close to ending. I wish wars were close to stopping, but they're not. And anything else is just wishful thinking, silly thinking, useful idiots for the deep state and all of that stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than that humans do than war. It's the worst thing that humans do.
Yeah. No, facts. Let's give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We know you can't see the explosions. We know you can't see our lovely faces, but we do appreciate y'all. We're available everywhere you find podcasts, Apple, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins, link in the description. Go get that book, get it in your library, read some poetry. Amoja also, MFA, world-class writer, world-class poet. We just do this because unfortunately we have to, we got to do it. We got to inform the people, but world-class in multiple disciplines. Me and TMK, Lil Tanky, everywhere you find music. InnerCityLeft.com, patreon.com/InnerCityLeft. We love our patrons. Y'all are the real heroes. I love you like cook food. And I think that's it. Tanky, thoughts, feelings. What did we miss?
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. And we burned $129 billion. Because nothing has changed. The war is not over. The blockade exists. And this shit is expensive. $129 billion that could have been used for any of a number of other tasks. Student loan relief, infrastructure, job creation, green energy, fucking, what do you call them, waivers, vouchers from the $129 billion. They could have been put towards any other American project. Towards something that still hasn't been won. We don't know if we will win it. We don't know if it can be won.
And it's just going to drag out, like you said, into the very, 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 very end. And we're in for a long road ahead. But, hey, we'll be here. And again, we have each other. And again, copium, hopium, friendship, activism is just the friends we found along the way. So, yeah, for Amoja Little Tanky Summer, I am Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Love Broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city love.